Yo, what is up everybody, it's Jake here back with another video, and this is the LG G4. It's been out for a while and I've been using it for a while, but should you go out and buy one right now? Let's find out in my video review of the LG G4 6 months later. So let's begin with the outside. The LG G4 is ever so slightly curved like the LG G Flex 2, but not as much. It feels pretty comfortable when holding in the hand, and LG is doing a very good job keeping the side and top bezels really thin, so it's pretty manageable when using the phone one-handed. However, the LG G4 is not the most premium smartphone in my opinion, because the body is mostly made out of plastic. You have plastic sides all around the phone that has glossy finish to it and looks kinda like metal, but once you hold the phone in the hand, you can pretty much immediately tell that this is plastic. The premium feel is just not there. On the plastic back of the phone, there's sort of a diamond pattern to it, which was what LG did to make the G4 feel more premium, I guess, but nothing is better than having an actual metal body or even a glass back. LG probably already knew people are going to complain about the build quality before the phone even launched, so they came out with leather backs for the G4 as well, which I highly recommend. I have one in my house, and once I put it on, the G4 definitely feels much more premium. Although it's probably not as premium as metal or glass, it's a huge improvement over the plastic back, and I think it looks better too. Oh, and yes, the back is removable, and you can get access to a micro SD card slot and a removable 3000 mAh battery, which I'll talk more about it in a second. Below the camera, you'll find the power and volume buttons. LG has put buttons on the back of their phones for years now, and it's not a bad thing. This way they can keep the size of the phone nice and clean. Although it might take some getting used to, I got used to it pretty fast, and once I'm used to it, I find myself love this placement, since that's where my index finger naturally rests. And LG has actually made some improvements on these buttons this year. They are now more tactile than the ones found on the LG G3. On the front of the phone, there's a big, gorgeous 5.5-inch Quad HD IPS quantum display that has a resolution of 2560 by 1440 and a pixel density of 538 pixels per inch. It's not an AMOLED panel, but LG put what's called a quantum IPS display on the G4, which they promised it'll bring more beautiful colors onto the display, deeper contrast, and also deeper blacks. When using the phone outdoors, I had no trouble seeing what's on the screen since it gets really bright, although not quite as bright as say the Galaxy Note 5 and the S6 Edge Plus. This is still a very good looking panel. Inside of the G4 is rocking a 6-core Snapdragon 808 processor, has 3 gigs of RAM on board. It's not the most powerful processor out there like the Snapdragon 810 and Samsung's Exynos, but it's more than enough for day-to-day use. I've done a whole bunch of things on this phone, such as gaming, web browsing, social media, taking pictures and videos, and it handles all the tasks that I throw at it with no problems at all. But putting a speaker at the back is not the smartest choice in my opinion, because it's so easy to be covered when I'm holding the phone in portrait, and when I'm watching videos in landscape, the speaker is actually pointing at the wrong direction, which is not the best experience. This time, the LG G4 is running LG's custom UI on top of Android 5.1 Lollipop. For short, it's been fast and smooth. When I switch between apps quickly, it has no stutter at all, even when I have a whole bunch of apps opening at the background. It opens apps very quick, there's rarely lags, and my only complaint about the software is its look. The UI is kind of at an ugly side, it looks a little outdated, and I think the settings menu could be done a little bit better, could be better organized, and it's just not a good looking UI. I still prefer the stock Android over this skin, so I installed a custom launcher and all the icons are customized, just to make it look as stock as possible. And as I've used this phone for a while, there are more and more apps installed on it. The UI starts having some weird lag and stutter here and there. However, I do like the idea of the split screen multitasking on this phone, although there's a limited amount of apps that are supported, but hey, at least you can take the advantage of the large 5.5-inch screen. Okay, so now let's talk about my favorite thing on this phone, and that is the camera. On paper, this thing is a beast. On the back there's a 16 megapixel sensor with optical image stabilization, f1.8 aperture, which is the widest on any smartphone so far, laser autofocus for faster focusing, an LED flash, and a color spectrum sensor below the flash that helps with better white balance. With all those specs, everybody expects the G4 to kick out some awesome photos. And yes, it does. In daylights, the photos have a very good detail, the colors are beautiful, white balance is on point thanks to the color spectrum sensor, and the dynamic range is very good. When the light dims down and comes to low light conditions, that's usually where the most smartphone camera suffers, but not for the G4. In fact, that's where this camera shines. The wide open f1.8 aperture helps out a lot with getting more light into the sensor without a longer shutter speed. Along with optical image stabilization, this camera takes outstanding photos in low light. It's still one of the best low light cameras out there right now. The photos are so detailed, and thanks to OIS, you won't get blurry photos out of it. In the stock camera app, there is a full manual control for photo taking. You get to adjust white balance, ISO, shutter speed up to 30 seconds, manual focus, and you can also take raw photos. If you know what you're doing and you're at a professional level, you're going to love this full manual control. But for average consumers, the auto mode is also great. The only downside of this camera is video taking. I mean, video taking is just frustrating. When I'm holding the phone and try to walk around, the stabilization is not that great. It's having a really hard time to stable the video smoothly, but it doesn't make it a bad camera since this can be fixed by software updates, but we just have to wait. Oh, and there is also an 8 megapixel front-facing camera if you're into selfies. It's not as wide angle, but the picture quality is decent. I think LG is probably the only OEM that still keep replaceable backs and removable batteries on their flagships, which is a huge plus. If you're a power user and you don't have much time to charge your phone throughout the day, just simply swap out the battery and replace it with a new one. And that's probably the quickest way that you can charge up your phone. But the battery life on my G4 has been really good. I'm usually getting about 4 to 4.5 hours of screen on time with brightness set to auto, but the battery life on the G4 can get me through the whole day, and I still have about 10% left before bedtime. The standby time is also worth mentioning. There was one time I fully charged my G4 before sleep, and by the time I woke up next morning, it still had about 99-98%, which not a lot of phones can do that. So the LG G4 is a great phone overall, and you can find a brand new one on Amazon for only about $420 right now. And should you go out and buy one right now? Well, if you take a look around, there's actually a lot of good flagships launched during these few months, and some of them are packed with high-end specs but sold with mid-range price, such as Nexus 6P, has a Snapdragon 810 processor, stock Android, a metal body, a bigger AMOLED display, front-facing speakers, and a fingerprint scanner, which the LG G4 doesn't have. And it's available for only about $449 right now. So there's definitely better choices out there. But if you already have an LG G4, you don't have to be disappointed or anything like that, because it's still a good phone, and the expandability really stands out from the other flagships, and you can keep rocking it for another year with no problems whatsoever. But what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your opinion. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up down below. I appreciate it. And if you guys want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!